It took me 3 weeks to empty my father's house after he died at 94. 3 weeks to sort through 70 years of what he'd accumulated since my mother passed. He'd kept everything, tools he hadn't touched in decades, boxes of papers he was convinced were important, projects he swore he'd finish eventually. I filled 2 dumpsters and made 11 trips to donation centers. And at the end, standing in that empty house, one thought hit me hard. He believed he was preserving something meaningful, but what he actually left us was 3 weeks of exhausting work. I'm 72 years old, and after dealing with my father's house, I came home and really looked at my own garage, my own office, my own basement, and I saw it, the same pattern. Boxes I've held on to for years, tools I'm keeping for when I need them, papers I tell myself matter, projects I insist I'll complete. I was setting up my kids for exactly what I'd just gone through. So I did something my father never did. I asked my sons directly, "When I'm gone, what do you actually want from all this?" What they told me changed how I see everything. Today I'm going to share what they said, what it made me realize, and what I'm doing about it now, while there's still time. Because the truth is simple, nobody wants your things, and accepting that isn't harsh, it's honest. My father had a workshop full of tools, quality tools organized perfectly, some inherited from his own father. Those tools meant something to him. When we'd visit, he'd say, "These will be worth something. Your boys should have them." After he died, we tried to honor that. But my sons work in tech. They rent apartments. They don't have workshops. They don't restore furniture or fix cars the way my father did. We sold most of it to an estate buyer and got $300 for what Dad thought was a family treasure. I've got tools too, not as extensive, but plenty. Power equipment for projects I started years ago, supplies for hobbies I've convinced myself I'll return to. And I've been repeating the same assumption. The boys will appreciate these. They won't. And refusing to face that reality just means I'm passing them a problem to solve. My father kept every document, tax forms from the 1970s, manuals for appliances replaced decades ago, bank statements, warranties that expired before I was married, filing cabinets in the basement, cardboard boxes in closets, all of it essential documentation according to him. We shredded almost all of it. What we kept could have fit in one folder. When I got home, I opened my own file cabinet and saw the same thing. Decades of paper I've never referenced, telling myself it's responsible record keeping. I spent 2 weekends sorting through everything. Want to know how much actually mattered? Maybe 5%. The rest was just fear disguised as organization. In Dad's basement sat a half-finished workbench. He'd started building it after he retired. 23 years later, there it was, gathering dust. He'd always say, "I'll get to it when I have energy." But that day never arrived. We hauled it away, all that lumber, all those hours planning, all that intention, wasted. That made me look at my own unfinished projects. Model railroad I started in 2009, woodworking equipment I set up but barely touch, books stacked for when I have more time. Here's what became clear. These aren't projects anymore. They're reminders of things I'm not doing. Every time I see them, I don't feel inspired. I feel defeated. Eventually isn't a plan. And keeping this stuff around doesn't preserve possibility. It just clutters today. My father thought he was leaving us an inheritance, a house full of items we'd value and divide up carefully. Reality? We spent 3 weeks stressed, disagreeing about logistics, moving things nobody wanted, feeling guilty about discarding what he'd valued. What did we actually keep? Some photographs, his watch, his wedding band. Everything else was obligation. That experience made me sit down with my sons and ask directly, what from this house actually matters to you? They looked uncomfortable, but I insisted on honesty. Finally, my younger son said, Dad, we don't need your stuff. We just want you to not leave us the job you had with Grandpa. That stung, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. They don't want my possessions. They want me to handle this now, so they don't have to handle it later. When you get older, you start thinking about what remains after you're gone, and it's easy to confuse objects with memory. I thought keeping Dad's tools honored him, but every time I looked at them unused in my garage, I didn't feel connected to him. I felt burdened by them. What I actually remember about my father isn't his possessions. It's fishing trips, conversations, the way he treated people. That's his real legacy. So why was I making the same mistake? Why was I clinging to objects, pretending they represented something, when what my kids will actually remember is how I treated them, whether I was present, whether I made their lives easier? Releasing objects doesn't erase memory. It makes space for what genuinely matters. After that conversation, I started making real changes. It's been harder than I expected. I'm working through my garage systematically. If I haven't used something in 18 months, it goes. Tools, equipment, materials. If they're not serving me, they should serve someone else. I'm digitizing documents that actually matter and disposing of the rest. 90% of what I've stored serves no purpose. I'm completing projects I genuinely care about and releasing the ones I've been pretending I'll finish. That model railroad? Donated to a local club, and I don't regret it. I feel relieved. And I'm having real conversations with my kids about what they actually value, not assuming but asking. Turns out what matters most to them is not worrying about me, not dreading the eventual cleanup. This isn't about extreme minimalism. It's about honest assessment of what holds real value versus what's just weight I'm planning to leave behind. I'm 72 years old. I don't know how many years I have ahead. Nobody does. But I know this. I refuse to leave my legacy as 3 weeks of exhausting work for my sons. I won't have them standing in my house, stressed and guilty, trying to figure out what to do with decades of accumulation. My father was a good man, but he left us overwhelmed because he couldn't accept a simple truth. We didn't want his things. We wanted him. I won't repeat that pattern. If you're holding on to possessions because you believe you're preserving something important, ask yourself, am I keeping this because it serves me now or because I'm avoiding the truth? Because here's what I've learned. The less you leave for others to handle, the better they'll remember you. Your legacy isn't what's in your garage, it's what's in their hearts. If this resonates with you, I'd like to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me, what are you holding on to that nobody will actually want? And if someone in your life needs to hear this, a father, a friend, anyone preparing for what comes next, Share this with them. Sometimes we need someone else to say what we already know. I spent 3 weeks dealing with my father's accumulation. My sons won't spend 3 weeks on mine. I'm handling it now while there's still time. Thank you for watching. And remember, what you leave behind matters. Make sure it's the right things. See you next time.